So today we got something really special for you here on the Bob and Ham Show.
That's right, and we're gonna go see something really special, a museum.
I'm gonna show you a great collection of bikes. I'm also gonna show you a 90-year-old man that still rides those bikes and he's got a great story to tell. So stay tuned and let's hear his story.
Let's go see Don Huffman.
My name is Don Huffman, and we're at my little collection of motorcycles in Lakeland, Florida. In 1971, I bought the dealership, and I had it until December 2015, I think it was. Almost 45 years. I didn't want it, but I had to have something to do, so the lady that I was working for in 1971 retired, and I didn't have anything to do, so I just bought her equipment and kept on working on motorcycles. This 1962 Sprint, the second year Harley Davidson had the Italian motorcycles. First year that they didn't look like an Italian motorcycle because he went with bigger wheels and big grips and big foot pegs and a nice little 250. It was really a lot of fun to ride. And back then I was riding off-road a lot, and it just worked real good in the Florida sand. This is the original color. They all made them in red. The one I had back in, this is not the one that I had back in 1962. This is 1971. Now that's the year that I bought the dealership. And that's the FX Kickstart 1200cc Sparkling America color. And it was a year or two after AMF bought Harley Davidson, so they got some AMF stickers on the side. It was the first year that Willie G. Davidson was a designer, and it was the first year they made a big twin engine to the Sportster front end and made it called a Super Glide. That one there is a kickstart. They also made him, a few years later, made electric start. They also had a black one, and it got the nickname of the Night Train because it was black. My son Donnie, he helps me accumulate some of these. He found this one. Sometimes this is referred to as the Harley Davidson Two-Stroke Museum. I got a lot more little bikes. You go to some of these big museums and they just have the big Harleys. Yeah. But I got a lot of the examples of the lightweights that they made in Italy back then. Harley Davidson bought a factory over there and made 50cc on up to 250. These two are 90. This is an X90. That's like a kid's bike and a Z90. And I have two 175s and 250s. 6 American-made two-stroke lightweights, and I got 6 Italian-made two-stroke lightweights. Of course, here's the Topper scooter. That's something that a lot of people don't know. Harley Davidson made scooters, but it's got a 165cc motor, an automatic transmission. There was no electric starts back then. Oh, this is a 65. They made them about 3 years, and it was kind of like before their time. Nobody wanted scooters back then. Now scooters is a hot item. A 175 Italian. That was a fun dirt bike. When they come out in the mid-70s, everybody had to have one. So we were riding off-road back then. That's all we did was go dirt biking every weekend. Off-road 100cc Baja called SR100 or a Baja, developed for racing out in West Coast, California. This is a 100, and the 125 is smaller than the 100, but this is for off-road. This is kind of an on-off, or this is a street legal bike here. Back then, this wasn't street legal. First year, they didn't have lights on it, but they had a magneto ignition and magneto lights, so it didn't comply with DOT. This has got a battery in it, so it's lights and brake lights and horn and everything works with the motor not running. Let's jump over here to this cafe racer. Most people can relate to the Sportster. Harley Davidson in 2 years made the cafe racer called XLCR. Willie G. Davidson designed that, and it wasn't real popular. Everybody seemed to think a Sportster ought to be more like a chopper. They only made them in black on black. Fastest Harley Davidson at the time, and this is a 1978. They made them in 77 and 78, and it's fiberglass. They made the gas tanks in fiberglass too initially, but it didn't meet the government regulations, so they had to make it in metal before they could sell it. Little mini fairing Cafe Racer Ferry. This bike is pretty well the way it came. Even got the front tires, even what was available back then, the Dunlop Qualifier. Back tire had been changed because it got wore out. Now later on they was replaced by the Buell 5-speed and rubber mounted and made these seem kind of obsolete. Sportster here, going back to the dirt bike.
Started out as a standard Sportster. 1971 XLH. I decided to make a dirt bike. I changed the front forks, put a YZ125 front fork, taller shocks, and went from there.
That's a custom bike.
That's basically the bike that I started
Racing
my
on?
drag racing. I took it, first time was 91, I built it and I took it to Daytona and rode around up there and everybody wanted to buy it.
Well, this is a custom Springer, custom paint job. This is a more modern Springer, softail on a softail chassis or a softail frame. A friend of mine had it painted like this because he was a seafood restaurateur.
His father, Charlie Woodsby, was the founder of Red Lobster. And the very first Red Lobster was here in Lakeland.
Oh, this is a 48 Panhead, the first year for the Panhead motor, the last year for the Springer front end. And it's a hardtail back end, no shocks on the back. That's unusual because of the Harley Davidson switched over to the hydraulic fork the next year, 1949, what I used to ride when I was a kid. In high school, I rode a Whizzer, and then I got out of high school and bought me a Cushman, and then went in service and all that stuff, and bought me a Harley. Now, 90 years old, still ride. I had this one the longest, as far as collection bikes, 1934. I never did trying to get a 1932 because that's the year I was born, but 34 is as close as I'd come to it. But that's a 74 cubic inch flathead, and it's of course 3-speed, hand shift, foot clutch, and it's an easy bike to ride. I put a lot of miles on it, took it to a lot of shows. 2 military bikes next to it. They're both 45 cubic inch or 750 cc, but that one is a V-twin, and this is here an opposed twin. Harley Davidson made 1,000 of these for the Army. Never went to war with them. The war was World War II was over by the time that they got them developed. And for the 45, the V-twin 45, the WLA had those over in Europe and everywhere. Harley Davidson made about 88,000 of those for the Army, which about 60-some thousand went overseas and was never brought back. Yeah, this one, if you look at the engine, it's an opposed cylinder. It was patterned after the 1939 BMW opposed cylinder, but it's a flathead motor, 4-speed transmission with a foot shift. And Harley Davidson never had a foot shift except this one. Their first foot shift on a big bike was in 1952. It comes equipped with a rifle. Thompson machine gun, and all that on there. I can't read that. The oldest bike I got, this one here, 1,000 cc, 1926 Harley Davidson J model. Then they come out with the JD, which was a 74 cubic inch. That's what that engine is intake over exhaust configuration. It's not a flathead, it's not an overhead. It had an overhead intake and a lower end exhaust valve. Intake over exhaust engine a long time, way back in the beginning of Harley Davidson time, when they come out with the first V-twin in 1912 or something like that, 1911. It has exposed push rods. The motor running, you see them going up and down, and rocker arms on top of the head, and they got the cutout on the tank for the valves to fit up in. That's quite difficult to start. I rode it a couple of times, but back in 26, they didn't believe in front brakes. 27 was the first year Harley Davidson put a front brake on a motorcycle. They thought they were dangerous. So that's one way you can tell a 26 from a 27 is whether or not it has a front brake. And this is not a military bike. It's just the color they made them back then. 30s, they started painting Art Deco and stuff like that to try to bring the sails up. Different colors. You get a 34 in probably 5 or 6 different colors. Harley Davidson bicycle. This was not made by Harley Davidson. This was a bicycle company got the permission from Harley Davidson to build a bicycle that looked like a motorcycle. So I have a sample of the early lightweights. This is 1971. After the war, after World War II, Harley Davidson started building little lightweights like this at 125cc. And the first year they didn't have telescopic forks on them. They had a rubber band girder fork that worked off of rubber bands. But after the 125, they had the 165, and they moved up to 175, and they were all 2-strokes. And they're what you call premix. Gasoline goes in here, and measuring cup, you
For your oil?
you know, this much to a gallon and this much to 2 gallon. And then you pour your oil in there and mix it up with the gas. A lot of kids didn't have oil, they would forget to put the oil in it. A lot of people call all these little bikes Hummers. Hummer was come out in 1955, the real Hummer, a less expensive version of this in 1955 wasn't even a 125, was it?
I believe the first one was a 125.
But anyway, people call them Hummers. Actually, their real name is ST-125.
You got S125.
This is the S-125. The ST would be the 175, 165. This black bike is a 175. I can remember when, as a mechanic, when we sold this, but this bike was in Tampa and a storm came in and this bike was swamped in salt water. I had to take the motor apart and clean all the salt water out of everything. And the salt water got in, rusted the wheels. I had to get new wheels. The lower portion of the frame, salt water rusted it. Got 7,000 miles on it, which is a lot of miles for a little bike. But back in '65, and this is what they call a pacer. It's not a rigid frame, so this has got suspension back in the back with springs underneath, and then it works
Kinda like
that
a soft
suspension. This yellow bike here is a rigid back end, so and only suspension you got is in the seat. This bike here probably made many trips to high school and back. And this is one like I used to race in the '60s. Here, it's got a oversized high compression head, larger carburetor. Still, it's a premix. And Harley Davidson come out with this bike here in 1972. This is called a Scat. Very popular. Every high school kid in town had to have one. And there again, it's a premix. When they foreign Japanese companies and Italian companies started making lightweights, they come up with oil injected, so you didn't have to put the oil in the tank and the oil tank and the gas in the gas tank. 65cc. Harley came in, when Harley bought bikes from the Italian factory first originally, then they bought the factory. 65cc. The first one was a 50. They stretched it to 65, and that's a little 3-speed, almost a moped. Well, been good talking to you folks.
Yeah.
Thank you. We appreciate
I hope you
like
got
you said,
a little information you can.
Oh, we did.
sharing your time and your memories. And
Yeah.
So thanks for coming out with us today. Actually, we're going to put another link here at the end that you can check out that's going to show you the video we did about 2 years ago. That time we didn't have a mic on him. We weren't so high-tech as we are today. Holy smokes, high-tech. And so hopefully you enjoyed this video a lot better than we did last one, and go back and check that one out too. Got a little different stories that he's told. Still kind of the same stories, but he added a couple different, had some new ones this time. So really great. We appreciate Don and his son Donnie for helping us out and giving us this great interview that we got today.
yeah, Yeah, we appreciate their time and their patience with us. So thanks for hanging out with us today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Give us that big thumbs up if you liked the video. And we'll see you on the next video.